There comes a moment in every great siege when walls are no longer the greatest weapon. Willpower is. By the final weeks of May 1453, Constantinople had endured nearly 2 months of relentless bombardment. Day after day, Ottoman cannons shattered sections of the Theodosian Walls. Night after night, exhausted defenders rebuilt them under the light of torches. The pattern had repeated so many times that both sides knew exactly what the other would do. The Ottomans would destroy. The Byzantines would repair. Yet beneath this familiar rhythm, something was changing. The city's strength was slowly running out. Inside Constantinople, food remained carefully rationed. Ammunition had become increasingly precious. Many soldiers now fought with damaged armor and worn weapons that had already survived countless battles. Every successful defense came at a cost that could no longer be easily replaced. The walls still stood, but the men defending them were reaching their limits. Across the battlefield, Sultan Mehmed II watched patiently. He had not expected Constantinople to fall quickly. From the very beginning, he had prepared for a long campaign. Every failed assault, every repaired breach, every day of resistance simply confirmed what he already believed. The city could still be defeated. It only required the right moment. His commanders gathered regularly inside the Ottoman headquarters to evaluate the progress of the siege. Engineers reported where cannon fire had weakened the defenses. Scouts described movement along the walls. Naval officers discussed activity inside the Golden Horn. Supplies continued arriving from across the empire, allowing the Ottoman army to maintain constant pressure. Unlike the defenders, Mehmed still possessed reserves. He could replace losses. Constantinople could not. The young sultan understood that warfare was often decided long before the final battle began. Victory belonged to the side that could endure longer. By late May, Ottoman artillery had opened several damaged sections along the western defenses. Although none had yet created a permanent breakthrough, repeated bombardment prevented Byzantine engineers from restoring the walls to their original strength. Each repair became weaker than the last. Each day demanded more effort. Each night offered less hope. Inside the city, Emperor Constantine XI refused to surrender to despair. Despite overwhelming odds, he continued appearing wherever morale seemed weakest. He rode between defensive positions, spoke with soldiers, thanked foreign volunteers for their courage, and personally inspected damaged fortifications. His calm determination inspired confidence. The emperor understood something that every great leader eventually learns. Hope can become a weapon. As long as the defenders believed resistance remained possible, the city still had a chance. Among those carrying the greatest burden was the experienced Genoese commander, Giovanni Giustiniani. Throughout the siege, he had directed some of the most dangerous sectors of the land walls with remarkable discipline. His professional soldiers worked alongside Byzantine defenders almost without rest, reinforcing breaches, organizing counterattacks, and preventing panic whenever Ottoman assaults threatened to overwhelm the defenses. Many later chroniclers agreed on one point. Without Giustiniani's leadership, Constantinople might have fallen much earlier. Yet even he recognized the growing danger. The defenders were becoming exhausted. Fresh troops no longer existed. Every casualty weakened the city permanently. Meanwhile, Ottoman morale remained remarkably high. Although the siege had lasted longer than many expected, the army could see visible results. Entire sections of the walls bore fresh scars from artillery fire. Defensive towers had suffered repeated damage. More importantly, the soldiers believed they were participating in an event that would be remembered for generations. For many, capturing Constantinople promised not only wealth but everlasting glory. Ancient traditions had long spoken of the conquest of the great city. Now, countless Ottoman soldiers believed they were living that prophecy. Mehmed sensed the growing confidence. He also recognized something equally important. A prolonged siege carried risks for both sides. Disease could spread. Supplies could become more difficult to transport. Unexpected European reinforcements might still arrive by sea. The longer Constantinople survived, the greater the chance that circumstances could change. The time for patience was ending. The time for decision was approaching. Late in May, Mehmed summoned his senior commanders for what would become one of the most important councils of the entire campaign. Military leaders, engineers, naval officers, and trusted advisors gathered inside the imperial command tent. Maps of Constantinople covered large wooden tables. Reports from scouts lay beside them. Every damaged section of the walls had been carefully marked. The discussion lasted for hours. Some commanders recommended continuing the bombardment until larger breaches appeared. Others argued that the defenders had already reached the limits of their endurance. Eventually, Mehmed made his decision. There would be one final assault, not a limited attack, not another attempt to test the walls. A full-scale offensive involving nearly every available soldier. The greatest assault Constantinople had faced in its 1100-year history. Orders spread rapidly throughout the Ottoman camp. Siege equipment was inspected. Weapons were sharpened. Scaling ladders were repaired. Extra ammunition was distributed. Imams moved among the soldiers, offering prayers and words of encouragement before the battle to come. Across the hills surrounding Constantinople, thousands of campfires illuminated the night. From the city walls, Byzantine defenders watched the unusual activity in silence, even without hearing a single command. They understood exactly what it meant. The final battle for Constantinople was about to begin. As darkness settled over Constantinople, an uneasy silence replaced the thunder of cannons. For nearly 2 months, the city had lived under constant bombardment. Day after day, the sound of exploding stone had echoed through its streets. But now, the guns fell strangely quiet. To many defenders, the silence felt more frightening than the bombardment itself. It meant the enemy was preparing for something far greater. From the towers of the Theodosian Walls, Byzantine lookouts watched thousands of fires burning across the Ottoman camp. Soldiers moved through the darkness carrying ladders, weapons, and supplies. Messengers rode continuously between different units. Even from a distance, it was obvious that the entire army was preparing for a single decisive operation. Inside Constantinople, Emperor Constantine XI also understood what was coming. There would be no more waiting, no more negotiations. No miracle relief army was marching from Western Europe. The fate of the city would be decided before another sunrise. The emperor spent much of the evening riding along the walls one final time. At every defensive position, he thanked soldiers for their courage and urged them to remain steadfast through the coming battle. Byzantine guards, Genoese volunteers, Venetian sailors, and ordinary citizens stood together along the battered fortifications. They came from different lands. They spoke different languages, but that night they shared a single purpose: to defend Constantinople until the very end. Among the most important defenders remained Giovanni Giustiniani ***. The experienced Genoese commander carefully inspected every section under his responsibility. Archers received their final bundles of arrows. Crossbowmen prepared fresh strings. Artillery crews positioned the last remaining supplies of powder and stone. Laborers carried timber and earth to reinforce the weakest breaches one final time. There would be no opportunity for repairs after dawn. Everything depended upon what had already been built. Throughout the city, churches filled with worshippers. For generations, Constantinople had considered itself the heart of Eastern Christianity. Now, with destruction approaching, thousands gathered in prayer, seeking strength rather than certainty. The greatest gathering took place inside the magnificent Hagia Sophia ***. Its enormous dome had witnessed imperial coronations, religious festivals, and celebrations for nearly 9 centuries. Now its vast interior filled with soldiers, nobles, monks, merchants, women, children, and elderly citizens standing side by side beneath glittering mosaics. Many chroniclers describe this as one of the most emotional moments in Byzantine history. People who had spent years divided by politics or religious disputes prayed together for the survival of their city. Some hoped for victory. Others prayed simply for courage. Outside the churches, life continued with remarkable determination. Blacksmiths worked late into the night repairing damaged helmets and swords. Women carried water and food to defensive positions. Children helped transport stones for emergency repairs. Even elderly citizens volunteered wherever they could. Every person understood that the defense of Constantinople no longer belonged only to soldiers. It belonged to everyone. Meanwhile, inside the Ottoman headquarters, Sultan Mehmed II finalized his own plans. His commanders gathered around detailed maps illuminated by oil lamps. Every unit received precise instructions. The assault would not rely upon a single attack. Instead, Mehmed organized his army into successive waves, each with a different purpose. The first would exhaust the defenders. The second would widen the breaches. The third, led by his elite janissaries, would attempt to deliver the decisive breakthrough. It was a plan based not only on strength, but on relentless pressure. Every defender forced to fight the first assault would have less energy for the second. Every arrow fired early would be unavailable later. Every fallen soldier weakened the walls permanently. Mehmed intended to transform exhaustion into victory. Throughout the Ottoman camp, imams offered prayers before the coming battle. Many soldiers believed they stood on the edge of one of history's greatest victories. Some sharpened their swords in silence. Others embraced close companions, uncertain whether they would survive the next day. Veterans checked their armor one final time. Young recruits stared toward the distant walls, preparing to face the city they had heard about since childhood. Few armies in medieval history had ever assembled for a battle carrying such enormous historical significance. Back inside Constantinople, Emperor Constantine XI gathered his closest commanders. Historical accounts record that he addressed those preparing to defend the city, reminding them of their duty to protect their homeland, their families, and their faith. Although the exact wording differs between contemporary sources, they agree on the message. Retreat was impossible. Surrender was unthinkable. If Constantinople were to survive, it would survive because its defenders refused to abandon it. Those present reportedly received the emperor's words with solemn determination. When the meeting ended, many quietly returned to their assigned positions. Some would never leave them again. As midnight passed, an eerie calm settled across the battlefield. The moon hung above the battered walls. The Bosporus reflected the light of countless campfires. Even the wind seemed unusually still. Both armies waited. One prepared to attack, the other prepared to endure. Within only a few hours, the final battle for the Roman Empire would begin. Before dawn on May 29, 1453 the silence finally broke. From every corner of the Ottoman camp came the sound of war drums, trumpets, and shouted commands. Thousands of soldiers formed into battle lines beneath fluttering banners as the first light of morning slowly appeared over the horizon. Inside Constantinople, church bells rang across the city. The defenders climbed onto the battered walls one final time. Many had barely slept. Some had not slept at all. They knew there would be no second chance. This battle would decide everything. Then the Ottoman artillery opened fire. The giant bombards roared once again, shaking the ground beneath the defenders' feet. Massive stone balls smashed into the already weakened sections of the Theodosian Walls, sending clouds of dust and broken masonry into the air. Almost immediately, the first wave advanced. Mehmed had deliberately chosen his opening attack. Rather than sending his finest troops first, he ordered large numbers of irregular soldiers to storm the walls. Their mission was not necessarily to capture the city. It was to exhaust its defenders. Ladders slammed against the stone fortifications. Arrows darkened the morning sky. War cries echoed across the battlefield. The Byzantines responded with remarkable discipline. Archers released volley after volley into the advancing ranks. Crossbowmen targeted officers climbing the ladders. Stones, spears, and burning materials rained down upon attackers struggling to reach the battlements. The fighting became desperate, yet the defenders held. Wave after wave broke against the walls without securing a permanent foothold. The cost to the attackers was heavy, but Mehmed had expected that. After the first assault finally lost momentum, fresh Ottoman units immediately moved forward. There was almost no pause. The second wave attacked before the defenders had time to recover. Professional provincial infantry surged toward the breaches, supported by continuous artillery fire. Once again, fierce hand-to-hand combat erupted along damaged sections of the walls. The defenders fought with extraordinary courage. Among them, Giovanni Giustiniani * moved constantly between threatened positions, directing reinforcements wherever the pressure became greatest. His calm leadership prevented confusion from turning into panic for a time. It seemed the city might survive once again, but every minute carried a hidden cost. The defenders were becoming exhausted, arrows grew scarce, armor became heavier, arms weakened. Every successful defense demanded strength that could never be recovered. Across the battlefield, Mehmed watched carefully from his command position. He had no intention of wasting his greatest soldiers too early. He waited. Only when he believed the defenders had reached the limits of their endurance did he give the signal. The Janissaries advanced. Unlike the earlier assault waves, these elite soldiers marched in disciplined formation. Their armor gleamed beneath the rising sun. Their ranks remained remarkably ordered despite the chaos surrounding them. For years, they had trained for moments exactly like this. Behind them stood the future of the Ottoman Empire. Ahead of them stood the last walls of the Roman Empire. The clash that followed became one of the fiercest moments of the entire siege. Janissaries rushed toward the largest breaches while Ottoman archers provided covering fire. The defenders answered with everything they still possessed. Swords clashed, spears splintered. The narrow breaches became scenes of brutal combat where neither side could easily advance for precious moments. The Byzantine line continued to hold. Then, disaster struck. During the fighting, Giovanni Giustiniani suffered a serious wound. Contemporary sources differ on exactly how he was injured, but most agree that the wound forced him to leave his position on the walls. His men attempted to carry him away for treatment. As news spread that the city's most experienced commander had withdrawn, confusion quickly followed. Some defenders believed the battle had already been lost. Others abandoned positions to assist the wounded commander. Small gaps began appearing along sections of the defense. They were exactly the opportunity the Ottomans had been waiting for. Sensing hesitation among the defenders, Mehmed immediately ordered renewed pressure across the entire front. Fresh Janissaries surged toward the weakening line. The struggle for Constantinople had reached its breaking point. Within moments, the fate of an empire would be decided. As the sun climbed higher over Constantinople on May 29, 1453 ***, the battle reached its decisive moment. The defenders had fought for hours without pause. Many had not slept in days. Their armor was dented. Their weapons were worn. Their bodies had reached the limits of human endurance. Yet they continued fighting, for behind them stood their homes, their families, and the last capital of the Roman Empire. Along the most heavily damaged section of the Theodosian Walls, Ottoman pressure intensified. The Janissaries attacked again and again, refusing to retreat despite heavy losses. Every breach became a battlefield of desperate hand-to-hand combat where swords, spears, and shields decided the fate of empires one soldier at a time. Then came the moment the defenders had feared. With Giovanni Giustiniani * carried from the battlefield after receiving a serious wound, discipline along parts of the walls began to weaken. His departure did not immediately cause the city's collapse, but it deprived the defenders of one of their most experienced commanders at the very moment they needed him most. Confusion spread. Orders became harder to deliver. Small groups of soldiers began falling back from positions they had defended for weeks. The Ottomans noticed instantly. Fresh Janissaries surged toward the widening gaps. Meanwhile, another event entered history, one that historians still debate today. Several later accounts claim that a small postern entrance, often identified as the **** Kirkeporta Gate ***, may have been left open or briefly unsecured during the confusion. According to these accounts, a number of Ottoman soldiers entered through the opening and raised their banners inside the outer defenses. Other historians question whether this incident occurred at all, arguing that contemporary evidence remains uncertain. Whatever the exact sequence of events, the result was unmistakable. Ottoman forces were now establishing positions inside Constantinople's defenses. The city's outer line had been broken. News spread rapidly along the walls. Some defenders continued fighting with extraordinary determination. Others realized the battle could no longer be won. Amid the chaos, Emperor Constantine XI refused every opportunity to escape. Several contemporary sources suggest that those around him urged him to leave the city while there was still time. He refused. For the last emperor of Rome, abandoning Constantinople was unthinkable. Instead, he removed the imperial insignia that identified him as emperor. If he were to die, he wished to die as a soldier among his men. Historical accounts differ regarding his final words, but they agree on one essential truth. Constantine XI chose to remain and fight. Surrounded by loyal companions, he charged toward the advancing Ottoman troops near the breached walls. Then, he disappeared into the fighting. His body was never identified with complete certainty. Some chroniclers claim it was later recognized by the imperial symbols on his boots. Others believe it was never conclusively found. The final moments of the last Roman emperor remain one of history's enduring mysteries. With organized resistance collapsing, Ottoman soldiers poured into Constantinople from multiple directions. For the first time in nearly 9 centuries, foreign conquerors controlled the greatest city of the Byzantine Empire. Church bells that had rung throughout the morning gradually fell silent. Smoke drifted above shattered walls. The battle was over. The Roman Empire, founded, according to tradition, in **753 BC**, had finally come to an end. For more than 2,000 years, Rome had transformed from a small Italian kingdom into a republic, then into an empire stretching across 3 continents. The Western Roman Empire had fallen in the 5th century. Its eastern half had endured for nearly another 1,000 years now. Its final chapter had closed. Later that day, Sultan Mehmed II entered Constantinople. Unlike the chaos of battle, his arrival marked the beginning of a new order. Contemporary sources describe the young sultan riding through the conquered city, observing both its extraordinary beauty and the immense destruction left by weeks of siege and the final assault. He eventually reached the city's greatest monument, Hagia Sophia. For almost 900 years, the magnificent church had stood as the spiritual heart of Eastern Christianity. Its enormous dome had inspired travelers from every corner of the known world. Standing inside the vast building, Mehmed reportedly admired its grandeur before ordering that it be preserved and converted into a mosque. The transformation symbolized far more than a religious change. It marked the beginning of a new era. Soon afterward, Mehmed declared Constantinople the capital of the Ottoman Empire. Rather than allowing the city to decline, he ordered it to be repopulated and rebuilt. Merchants, craftsmen, scholars, and families from across the empire were encouraged to settle there. Markets reopened. Homes were repaired. New mosques, schools, baths, and public buildings gradually appeared alongside surviving Byzantine monuments. The city did not disappear. It was transformed. Over the centuries, Constantinople evolved into one of the greatest capitals of the Islamic world. Eventually, it became known by the name the world recognizes today, Istanbul. The fall of Constantinople reshaped global history. European kingdoms suddenly realized that the Ottoman Empire had become one of the dominant powers of the age. Trade routes between Europe and Asia grew increasingly uncertain, encouraging many kingdoms to search for new paths across the oceans. Within decades, Portuguese sailors rounded Africa. Christopher Columbus sailed west across the Atlantic. The age of exploration accelerated, changing the course of world history. Meanwhile, scholars fleeing the fallen Byzantine capital carried precious Greek manuscripts into Western Europe. Their knowledge helped fuel the intellectual movement now known as the Renaissance, preserving classical works that might otherwise have been lost forever. The fall of one city helped reshape an entire civilization. Even today, Visitors walking through modern Istanbul can still trace the echoes of 1453. The mighty Theodosian Walls still stand in many places. Hagia Sophia still dominates the skyline. The Bosporus continues linking Europe and Asia exactly as it has for thousands of years. Empires have risen, empires have fallen, but the city at the crossroads of continents endures. The siege of 1453 was never simply the story of one battle. It was the end of the Roman Empire, the rise of the Ottoman Empire, and one of the greatest turning points in the history of the world.